Games with massive legacies, those titles that became famous for one reason or another and essentially are put on a massive pedestal for years to come, which, granted, if a game is popular or famous for a certain aspect, then it makes sense to put them on a pedestal of sorts, but usually in the sense of like, let's say, a museum of some kind, because then issues come with, let's say, some people will think the game is overhyped because of its legacy or status that it can still maintain, or kind of thing of, oh, what if someone decides to remake or remaster and change it down the road, or have people start holding up the pitchforks and everything. Or it also creates resentment, especially as part of a long-running franchise. Let me explain. Immediately going with the best example is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which you will generally see constantly top favorite / best games ever's list to this day. And for a lot of people, especially playing it when it was new, they will understand the whole entire mindset of why that is, because of, oh, Z-targeting, oh, first Zelda game with a full 3D experience, oh, many games afterwards still take inspirations from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time to this day, including even later entries in Zelda, something like Twilight Princess, or even Breath of the Wild still has been moments where people point and go, oh, it's like Ocarina of Time kind of thing. It became a huge inspiration, and is one that people generally still love to this day, is often cited as, quote-unquote, the best game ever made, which is just, you know, opinion and all that. There's no de facto best game ever made. But then you have the flip side, with people getting mad and resentful towards the game solely because of the fact that it's a high reputation and everything, and still tops favorites games list to this day, or best game ever made list to this day. Like, let's say, other Zelda fans, or people who prefer other entries, let's say Twilight Princess or Breath of the Wild. And Breath of the Wild is also a massively popular entry that people tend to cite as being inspirations for many other titles as well and everything. Hell, I remember when the game Genshin Impact, before it came out, when it was just like revealed as a concept, there were people who were saying they're just copying Breath of the Wild but with girls. And from the responses to that, a lot of people liked the idea. As when it came out, people generally liked the idea. Genshin Impact very popular. But it's one of those things where Breath of the Wild is also very high up there, and there are people who prefer Breath of the Wild over Ocarina of Time. And it's kind of a whole entire thing of throwing rocks in a glass house because Breath of the Wild's in the same position, but because it generally isn't the one to top those lists, people feel like it should, even though, like I said, it's one of the most popular Zelda games, so, and it's an inspiration for other titles. It's one of those things where you're in the same position, but because it isn't the one in the top, Breath of the Wild fans think it doesn't, Ocarina of Time doesn't belong there. Or some people who feel like Ocarina of Time, being given a tiny 8, pretty much shouldn't be on the highest list with how far technology has come. You know, that's not how games or anything really works. Get better technology, that doesn't necessarily mean you made a better product, the whole entire thing. It's one of those things where people are resentful that why does this game for a tiny 8 on Nintendo 64, which wasn't even a great console to begin with, is so high up there because of its legacy. People feel like, why not another game, the whole entire thing should be in that spot. But one thing where arguing Breath of the Wild, well, you're doing the same thing, or arguing Twilight Princess, or arguing a game that takes many inspirations from Ocarina of Time, so irony and all that. I was gonna put Final Fantasy 7 here, but nah, instead we're gonna focus on Chrono Trigger, the title that many will say is the best RPG ever made, and is a very beloved RPG on the Super Nintendo. Then it got a DS port, also got a PS1 port, is somehow not on consoles nowadays, only on the PC and mobile device, everything, but it's one of those very popular entries that is seen as a one-of-a-kind thing because of the dream team involved making it, to where you can't make another Chrono Trigger. So why do people keep asking them to make another Chrono Trigger? Or even the idea of remake. I mean, like, oh, they should remake Chrono Trigger to look like HD 2D. I hate that idea, but that's me. Other people enjoy that idea. But Chrono Trigger is a very beloved RPG, whether it be the tech system, with double tech or triple tech, having your whole party involved in the combat, having the enemy sprites actually move around so you can set up AoE attacks, everything, the apartment with side quests, everything, the fact that there's also some choice you can make throughout the experience. I can alter your narrative and get you one of, I believe it was 12 endings originally, and then they added a 13th one down the road, a DS version. But it's one of those things with a very beloved RPG, and you see many people enjoy it. The flip side is then becomes when the sequel, Chrono Cross, enters the conversation, where you will have people, and I've seen it, just despise people who prefer Chrono Cross over Chrono Trigger, or make every excuse under the sun for why Chrono Cross is not a sequel to Chrono Trigger, despite how many callbacks, direct narrative mentions, continuations, and everything from Chrono Trigger, returning characters. People will say it's not a sequel, or that should have been called something else other than Chrono. Some people say it's because they expected the game to be the exact same as Chrono Trigger, like I said, was a once-in-a-lifetime game with the Dream Team. So of course Chrono Cross would be different, especially from the concept of Chrono Trigger being about time travel, Chrono Cross being about dimensional travel. But there's a lot of callbacks, everything that shows that it is a sequel, and the new ending for Chrono Trigger on DS was added to better combine the two games. The PS1 version of Chrono Trigger also added a new anime cutscene to better combine the two games, but here is a point where it's not people being mad at Chrono Trigger for its fame, it's Chrono Trigger fans being mad at Chrono Cross for not being the same thing as it, and therefore it's now a quote-unquote illegitimate entry or sequel, despite it still being a Chrono title. You have the Devil May Cry series, or more specifically, Devil May Cry 3 and 5, which are generally people treat them as a pinnacle of action games or action game design. On top of also, you also have the likes of Platinum Games, which their banner series will seen as a pinnacle when it comes to how action games should be designed, action gameplay, and everything. But it was to the point where any game with action gameplay generally gets compared to them, whether in the exact same genre or not. So you can have things that are just action RPGs, then people will then try to compare them to the Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, even though the comparison doesn't really add up, so they're not exactly the same thing, or going for the same thing. Another thing I remember is also seeing a streamer play the Yakuza franchise, and he kept getting frustrated by some of the aspects of Yakuza's combat, which is less about, hey, do this big combo, more about fill up the heat meter, do your heat moves, but also don't just spam them because then you'll get less damage each time you do it. Kind of wants her aspect of weighing using your environment to your aspect, and also just find a boss. But they kept complaining that it just made them wish the game was designed by Platinum Games, because to them, Platinum was the benchmark of action games, so they thought if it was a company that make the gameplay better, it would be Platinum. But it was to the point where it was just starting to say that for like every action game they played. It's gotten to the point where it's like, okay, I get it, but like, I don't want every game to play the exact same as everything else. I do like when other games do try their own spin in a genre, because one of their idea, and I'm also working out and everything. There's one of those aspects where, for some people, maybe it's been the pinnacle so far, and they feel like every game should have the same design philosophy for an entire genre. And like, I get it. Devil May Cry 3, Devil May Cry 5 was great. Bayonetta 1 and 2, good and great. Bayonetta 3, I don't like Bayonetta 3's combat, so that's just me. But the whole entire thing where I don't want every genre to be play about the exact same thing. Like other people who are like, oh, fighting games should be designed by Arc System Works. It's like, I mean, Arc System Works has other companies that work for them, is why the games they publish tend to be different styles. Once again, it's the idea that just having the one company do the one thing, or having them do essentially everything, it's like, dial it back. There are many other companies, many other people who can do their own spin, just waiting to impress you with their own ideas. Now, for the flip side with the Master Legacy, is the fact that since they have so many years of hype and pretty much pedestal degree accolades, nothing could ever really truly live up to that aspect kind of problem. But there are people who will play a game that's beloved as a great title, but they may not enjoy it and be baffled that this game is the one that gets all the accolades, everything. It's like there are people who don't really care for Final Fantasy VII and instead prefer a different Final Fantasy entry, or they prefer the Final Fantasy VII Remake project and how it handles the world and gameplay of Final Fantasy VII, to the point where it'll be like, why is this not the one that's praised? Instead, it's only Final Fantasy VII. And we can also kind of see that other entry, for example, like, oh, Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy IX fans, how they feel like Final Fantasy IX is the pinnacle of the PS1 era Final Fantasy, and they're surprised that it's more underrated. Define underrated, considering people still mention you guys, but it's one of those things where, because they'll bring up stuff like, oh, I'm not sure if it's still the case, but there was a point at least where Hiroshi Sakaguchi was like, oh, Final Fantasy IX is his personal favorite, even though just because the creator of the franchise says their favorite isn't necessarily an accolade whatsoever. I mean, you also have recent comments as Final Fantasy 16 where he feels the ultimate Final Fantasy kind of thing. So, one creator's comment doesn't necessarily, opinion doesn't necessarily mean this is the best one by facto. But it's one of those things where Final Fantasy fans will argue back and forth and say this could be better than Final Fantasy VII, everything, everywhere, a much way forward, even though it's like, you just have your preference. You need to try and claim the third Final Fantasy VII sets. Like, you can't change the fact that Final Fantasy VII was a hallmark game when it came out. You can say there are games better than it. You can say there are games better before and after it, but the real world situation is, it was the one that got the attention, it was the one that brought in new people, and you can't take that aspect away from it. Nowadays, you get people who want Legends of Ocarina of Time to be remade because they find the original game so awkward to play or something, or they don't like how it looks, or they feel like there's just untapped potential because they play later entries like Breath of the Wild, and going, oh, we had more Breath of the Wild aspects, like some people say, make Hyrule basically more interesting to go through. Hyrule Field doesn't really have a super lot going for it. But when those people feel like, hey, we want Breath of the Wild, there's more things to do in it, it'd be more interesting. So people feel like, oh, I should have more Breath of the Wild style combat, because Ocarina of Time's combat is basic. That's not minced words. And this is not even basic. Those other game really has super in-depth combat, including Breath of the Wild, actually. But that's beside the point. It's one of those things people feel like, hey, it could be improved with the tech of nowadays. But it's one of those things where there are people who feel like, what's the point? Especially for a Zelda franchise where that kind of effort could be more put into a new entry or whatever kind of aspect. But one of those things where people keep saying the idea, oh, Ocarina of Time should be remade, or it deserves a remake, which, like, Define deserves a remake, considering it's one of the most popular games ever made, so at that point, does it need a remake? And I think my brother puts it, where he puts it as Ocarina of Time, the original 64 version, is the one you put in the museum for its fame and everything, but not the one you actually play. Is the 3DS remake that adds some quality of life improvements, and that's the one people actually play. There should be a difference between this is the famous one that we put in the museum to look at, and here's the one we actually go and play, but you have to acknowledge the original is the one that became big and famous. You also have games that get known for a certain thing, even if they weren't exactly the first to do a whole entire aspect. It's like, for example, I still count this entire genre. Sad dad games. As the name says, you play as a dad who is sad for one reason or another. So, it became a genre generally because The Last of Us became a big hit, and you play as Joel, who is a sad dad. But there are many games before and after it, whether it be before it like Nier, where the West had Dad Nier, while Japan had the choice of Dad or Brother Nier, but many Western fans preferred Dad Nier. Or we also had other games such as Heavy Rain, which is also a big sad dad game. Granted, that was just one of the four main characters you played in Heavy Rain, or even games after it, whether it be such as, hey, here's the God of War reboot game, that is also a sad dad game. Even though I get technical, God of War 1, 2, and 3 are also sad dad games, so you want to get technical, God of War from Inception was a sad dad game. Yakuza 6, the entire game is about fatherhood, so you're constantly running into sad dads in that game. So it's one of those things where many games before and after it have done the sad dad aspect. Why is this the example I went with? Sad dad aspect. It's one of those things where Last of Us gets the credit for, and many people feel like a previous game has probably done it better. It's like what we're seeing now. It was the game Claire Obscure X-Ray 33. Many people give it lots of praise, and I do feel a lot of praise is warranted, but you have people getting upset because other games before it, whether it be Legends Dragoon, Paper Mario, Mario RPG, Lost Odyssey, many games before it, Atelier Lois Suel, Caligula Effect 1 and 2, many games have done aspects that game has done that some people feel like may have executed better, but it's a game that's learning from all these inspirations while trying to add its own spin, and there may be people who love the game for it, or who have not tried those other games and may be interested, or they maybe only like Story 3 specifically, and not the other games that I just mentioned kind of one-tier aspect, and it's causing some resentment towards people. But despite the fact that the game winning awards, selling millions of copies is a good thing, there are people getting mad at taking their frustration out on X-Men Story 3. We had the Game Award, and it won like 9 awards, and there are some people resentful for the fact that it won 9 awards, with some feeling like one game should not be allowed to sweep an award show like that, even though at that point you're basically like, I mean, one, not taking the award show way too seriously, especially since the only thing that really matters for the devs. Like, us as the audience, we don't really care, unless it's a company making a Game of the Year edition down the line, which includes bonus content or DLC bundled in. That's when we care, but but when it comes to the Game Awards aspect, people are like, there should be a rule where you can't win that many awards. But if you were to put a rule like that, it basically defeats the point of an award show where you're basically restricting a title and what can actually win. And it's like, yeah, I get it, you don't like the idea of one game winning so many awards, but you had to put a rule in place where it can't win the awards. That means whatever else gets the award basically wasn't the real winner in that aspect, you know? Feels like a pity award at that point. And you do have people trying to say that, watch, in 10 years, so many games will say they're inspired by X-Men 33. Only time will tell if that is the case, because honestly, we don't know that that will be the case, because there are many other games that say that their mechanics will inspire the future, and then they don't. I mean, Final Fantasy VIII, you have the devs believing the junction mechanic was ahead of its time, but you don't really see any other RPG do the junction mechanic of Final Fantasy VIII. So it's one of those things where, who knows, maybe people will take aspects of Story 3, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll do it in ways we don't expect, like how Gears of War, one of the inspirations of Legend of Zelda, something many people wouldn't really associate with Gears of War in any way, shape, or form, but it's one of those things. Or how Mass Effect starts taking more and more cues from Gears of War for its combat to a point where it started becoming more indistinguishable from it. Or even one of the Harry Potter games 360, I think it was a Deathly Hollow Part 1, was basically Gears of War. So once again, you see people take inspiration from things you don't really expect or associate with it. Of course, gotta mention Grand Theft Auto in terms of being a franchise on a massive legacy to this day, not only being one of the most popular video game franchises to this day, but also because of Grand Theft Auto 3 being the entry that essentially created the open world video game genre as we know it, to the point where it completely eclipses every Grand Theft Auto made before it. Makes me wonder how fans of those entries feel that they get less talked about, less mentioned, and also not ported like their future entries and everything else, even if there are issues like Grand Theft Auto 4 not being ported whatsoever. It's one of those things where it basically set the format of the open world genre, and people can see that as for better and for worse, considering, I don't know, for me, Grand Theft Auto's open world or Rockstar specifically, always been a case of it's so big, but not enough stuff to really justify its size or anything for me when it comes to the size of open world. But then also led to Assassin's Creed later on becoming the face of open world design, but in a bad way, where people love Grand Theft Auto and how it handles open world. Assassin's Creed instead gets the term the generic Ubisoft open world problem because of its more fixation of, hey, gotta climb this tower in order to see where the side objectives are, and then do that a lot in order to unlock the map. Well, Grand Theft Auto generally can see the map, you're not able to explore it from the get-go, like Grand Theft Auto 4 blocks you from going to certain locales till the story says so, but you can generally explore a lot more and find the side content on your own. You do that to Assassin's Creed as well, but with the map being blocked out, tends to be an issue where people complain more about how Ubisoft does it compared to how Rockstar handles open world, even though both franchises are big, famous legacy franchises or franchise with legacy, typically. But just interesting dynamic where one is seen as the main open world design. If any game follows its suit, people will bash it, while the other one is seen as the idea of this is pinnacle open world design everything. And as Xenoblade X fans watching this, sit your butt down when we talk about Xenoblade X. Also to highlight that just because a game is a massive legacy, doesn't also mean everyone knows about it. Because I mentioned Ocarina of Time being one of the most popular games in video games period, and also most popular Zelda series, but I've met people who have also never heard of the Zelda series ever in their life, because it wasn't the kind of game on their radar, so they were completely unaware of it. Or the fact of, me personally, you asked me like early high school, I wouldn't know what Bioshock was, I wouldn't know what Ratchet & Clank was, I would kind of know what Uncharted was, I wouldn't know what the Sly Cooper franchise was, and I wouldn't know Jack and Daxter, like many franchises that, in this case, associated with PlayStation, I wouldn't exactly know about. I don't exactly know the Forza series other than it's a racing game series. Like, there are many franchises that have very big appeal, very popular, but sometimes people could just also not know about it. I know people joke about, oh, are those people live under a rock? Maybe I do. Or maybe it's just because I stick to a certain aspect and niche, so I only see stuff in my radar because, well, I mean, there's many games out there that people could love, but they don't know about it yet, and just because a game has a huge popular fame, doesn't mean everyone's actually known about it or played it, but then those games get treated as games that are must-plays, and that someone has to try it at some point in their life as well, which once again, puts on a hype expectations that could not be met if the game is not meet up to your standards, but it's still one of those things where just because something is a must-play or well-known, doesn't actually mean everyone knows about it or its franchise. Last two I'll mention is Persona and Sakura Wars. First, Persona. Many credit Persona with the whole entire aspect of combining a dating sim with an RPG, where before Persona was strictly a term-based RPG, then Persona 3 onward is like, what if we combine it with dating sim aspects, everything? And many people do enjoy that approach. Many people hate it when you say dating sim aspect, but that's what it is. It's also like the dating sim aspects. One-time mechanic, and there are other games that do cite Persona as an inspiration when it comes to how they function, kind of thing. So you can see where developers do cite Persona inspiration, even if many people will say it's just an RPG or a dating sim, or social links are basically just party member side quests from any other RPG, but many do cite it like that one entire aspect, so kind of go with the devs say, even if I end up disagreeing on one entire aspect. But I want to mention Sakura Wars because of the fact that Sakura Wars generally paved the way for having these tactical RPGs that were also dating sims, and that's generally what people associate with Fire Emblem nowadays as a tactical RPG with dating sim mechanics as well. It's one of those things where if you were to say that Fire Emblem made that whole entire genre or aspect to a Sakura Wars fan, they probably start choking you out. It's one of those things where Sakura Wars should have the reputation. It should be known for that, and in Japan, it is. But since they only really localized like 2 Sakura Wars titles, being I believe Sakura Wars 5, which wasn't well liked, and then the freaking, not full reboot, but semi-reboot game, Sakura Wars, that's the same name, but I just call it Shin Sakura Wars or New Sakura Wars. That game, despite having a chance to use what makes Sakura Wars great and beloved and show Fire Emblem crowd this way they should play Sakura Wars, they instead made it into a, I can't even say Musou clone, that's an insult to Musou clones, but a crap action game with bare bones, so freaking dating sim aspects, and it's like, it was just trash. It was trash. I hated it. I hated that game. I know people enjoy it. I hate Shin Sakura Wars or Burning Passion. And instead of wowing people, the Fire Emblem crowd, what could have been, they instead just make a game that was nothing like Sakura Wars and thought it'd go over well. And it got double hit in Japan because of a certain plot twist in the game, but that's besides the point. They had a chance to show why Sakura Wars should be the king of its own genre, and then they blew it. Just want to ramble about games with massive legacies and everything, and how, hey, here's a game that's known for this, and some people feel like, future entries did it better, or even prior entries did it better, or prior games that went more under the radar for one reason or another, pretty much did that whole entire aspect, or it could be games that people do love and praise to high heaven, but then praise it to high heaven so hard that you end up putting people who are resentful and want to see it crash and burn for one reason or another, or people who just want their favorite thing to have that spotlight that it should have been. Or like I mentioned with the Devil May Cry Bayonetta thing, people who make examples that just pretty much like, these things aren't comparable, why are you comparing these two things, leave me alone, leave this thing alone, it's not bad, just because A is not B does not make A bad, it just means it is not B kind of thing. One entire aspect when it comes to whole entire games. And like I said, many games that get put on a pedestal, but people feel like, hey, here's a new version that people should play, but the old version should still be respected for the pedestal it's on and what it did at the time, whether for its franchise or for its medium or whatever aspect, you know. Kind of one entire thing where, yes, a game that's popularly lauded you may not be wowed by, you may not even enjoy, but does not take away from what it is. Me thinking Final Fantasy VII is a good game, but not a great one, or mind-blowing, does not take away from the fact that Final Fantasy VII did allow for RPGs and what's aspect. While I may not think Persona's social link mechanics are that major, I still, developers keep citing it as inspiration when they do calendar systems, so I have to admit defeat there. Soccer War fans will very be punching air because Shin Soccer Wars came out and basically just burned any hope for Soccer Wars, despite the game being voted on by fans, Sega fans, period. Like, it had a massive vote in Japan to bring back Soccer Wars, and then they blew it when it could have come back and shown why it wears the crown in the tactical RPG and dating sim hybrid genre, but the devs decided, we're gonna just make trash. What's their aspect? So I gotta ramble about games and Mass Legacies. Go out there, play games that, when I Mass Legacy and trying for the first time, help you enjoy it. Also, it's really talking about the fact that there's some games and Mass Legacies that either have bad or worse versions out, like bad remasters, like for example, and I got patched, but for the Definitive Edition, there's really more people point at and go, man, these versions of the games aren't as good as the original version kind of thing. Or there are many popular games, not popular, but well-known games that just don't have a modern port, so your only option is emulation, or maybe some certain ports. I mentioned in the video, Chrono Trigger was one of the most beloved RPGs ever made, but if you're a console player, you're out of luck. Or even like Grand Theft Auto 4 nowadays. People love Grand Theft Auto 4, but unless you have a PC nowadays, you're out of luck with playing Grand Theft Auto 4, can never port it to a modern console, but that's an issue with porting everything. So out there, go out there, play games that you enjoy. Alright then, good day.
Games with legacies are a very subjective topic. One person might say X is better, another one might say Y is better, then a third person will come in and say Z is better. At the end of the day, regardless of what the sales numbers is, regardless of how many people give it XYZ awards and whatnot, at the end of the day, it's subjective and everybody has the right to say this is better than this in their own opinion. Now, what I want to start off with is Metroid Other M. Now, this might be considered by some to be a blemish in the Metroid timeline. Others might go to the extreme and deem it as a Metroid killer for the franchise. I am in the minority where I very much enjoyed Metroid Other M. I understand that it took a drastically different tone from the previous Metroid games, and you know, Samus talking, I didn't really see that as a negative, and I know everybody's memed on saying, oh my god, Samus can't do anything without asking Adam for permission, etc, etc, etc. I know, but regardless, I enjoyed it. I felt it told a decent story. I actually like Samus talking, and yeah, while it was a little bit comedic at times where Samus couldn't do her basic badassery because she had to ask for permission, I still jived with the story. I didn't really see any problems personally. Told a very good story. I liked hearing Samus, you know, talk about things, her thoughts. The gameplay is also interesting because Metroid predominantly has been a 2D game, and then with the introduction of the Prime series, it switched to first-person shooter. And Metroid Other M actually incorporates both styles. Metroid Other M does both 2D side-scrolling and first-person shooter. So that's an interesting gameplay style. But yeah, everybody has a different opinion regarding which game is, you know, the superior in the franchise, or which game left a blemish in the franchise, etc, etc. For me, I would say I greatly enjoy Other M, and I don't consider Other M to be a blemish or a Metroid killer in the franchise. It's just another game in the series, and while it didn't do as well and everybody dunked on it, I personally thoroughly enjoyed it. Another one for the Legacies would be the Mass Effect series, specifically Mass Effect 2. I know Mass Effect 2 is a beloved one, and the combat and the gameplay, I guess, was like revolutionary for its time. I've never played Gears of War, but I've heard it's very Gears of War inspired. Yeah, the story of Mass Effect 2 is good, and, you know, the cast is nice and all that, and I've said it in numerous videos before. Mass Effect 3 personally is my favorite one. I know 2 is the beloved, but 3 is my personal favorite. But yeah, Mass Effect 2, whenever you talk about Mass Effect, the go-to, I assume, is always people talking about Mass Effect 2 specifically. And I guess people really liked the Gears of War-esque style on Mass Effect. I'm assuming Gears of War is a pretty popular game. Again, I have not played Gears of War, but seeing as Mass Effect 2 became the fan favorited among the trilogy, I would assume it has to deal with the Gears of War gameplay style. But regardless of that, story is good, cast is good, all that jazz. You know, I've gushed about Mass Effect in numerous videos. Mass Effect 2, whenever you talk about Mass Effect, people will, I would assume, automatically point you to Mass Effect 2 as like the definitive game to play out of the trilogy, when all three of them have their own respective place, and I feel like all three of them are easy to play personally. That's just me. But again, I have strong favoritism towards Mass Effect as a whole, specifically 3. Now this one really hits home for me. Silent Hill. When you talk about Silent Hill, people would automatically point you to Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 is considered to be one of the greatest Silent Hill games in the entire franchise. And this one is going to be a heavily biased one because I happen to be a Silent Hill 2 fan. Specifically, I like James, and I like the moody atmosphere, all that. Like, literally, James is mood. James is literally me, excluding his actions in the game. If you know, you know. But overall, James is literally me, excluding his actions. I always have to point that out, excluding his actions. But yeah, so going off Silent Hill 1, I guess at the time Silent Hill 2 like revolutionized the game, the series. Again, I was like but an infant child when this came out. I had no knowledge of Silent Hill. I didn't know what Silent Hill was until later on in my life, and my introduction to Silent Hill was from the 2006 movie. But not to go off topic here, but I played Silent Hill, the game, later on. Now, I will say, up until this point, and I'm gonna end up dating the video, but so be it. Up until this point, Silent Hill 1, Harry has been stuck in 1999 PS1 hell. It is only at this current time period, 2026, May 2026, where we have confirmed Silent Hill 1 remake. Finally, he's gonna get out of PS1 1999 hell. Now, Silent Hill 2 is the beloved one. And again, my strong bias, because I literally love James, like that's my mood, I have to agree. However, I did enjoy Silent Hill 1 as well. Even though it's 1999 PS1 hell, I enjoyed it. Yeah, like at the time, like the tank controls and fixed camera angles and that, I never had an issue with fixed camera angles, tank controls. I never had an issue with that. Like, I mean, at first I was like trying to understand what to do, like anybody would when they're first playing something new. But eventually I got the hang of it, and I don't hate it. I don't hate it. To this day, I still like it. A lot of people have preferences. A lot of people dislike the fixed camera angles. I don't. I grew up with it. You know, again, even though I play these games later, I did grow up with fixed camera angles. You know, first was Resident Evil, then Silent Hill, but I enjoyed it. The story for Silent Hill 2 is very great. I've played the OG and the remake, and they're both very fucking good. You know, music, ambience, moody, all that. I have so many screenshots of James' little mood. I love the characters, I love the story, and like that really like merged with my being. Like, I greatly enjoy Silent Hill 2's storytelling. Everything about it is magnifique. But I'm not gonna knock off the other Silent Hills as well. Like, I also greatly enjoyed Silent Hill 1. Silent Hill 1 really broke me, and I'm looking forward to playing the remake. And I also enjoyed Silent Hill 3. Heather's story was very good as well. Silent Hill 4, you know, I'm not really a fan of 4. And I haven't really played the other ones. Like, I've played a bit of Downpour, but that's about it. But 2, I really greatly enjoyed 2, and again, my strong bias because that's my personal favorite. I will have to agree, you know, I'll gladly accept that 2 is like the greatest Silent Hill game in the series. I can always do with more James, more moodiness, But yeah, this is the one where I'll definitely agree with it just because I have a strong personal bias towards Silent Hill 2. Now, Saints Row. When you think of Saints Row, people automatically point out Saints Row 2 being the greatest Saints Row game in the entire series, and I would have to agree. Saints Row 2 is not my personal favorite. I don't have a personal favorite for Saints Row, but Saints Row 2 is not my favorite. I enjoyed it, but it's not my favorite. I watched a friend play it, and I was really blown away by how serious it was because my first introduction to Saints Row was playing Saints Row 3. So I was used to the comedic side of things. Saints Row 2 being so serious, I was like, whoa, this is different. I don't know nothing about Saints Row 1. Never got to play it because it was like a first Xbox exclusive. Don't think it's emulatable. I could watch a gameplay on YouTube, but I haven't. But yeah, I know nothing about Saints Row 1. Saints Row 2 definitely was a 180 from what I was used to because, again, Saints Row 3 was my first game. So that was a complete 180, but I enjoyed Saints Row 2. Like, I understand why it's considered the greatest in the Saints Row series. Very good storytelling, very good characters, all that. Like, I really enjoyed it. Saints Row 3 then changed and became more comedic, which, personally, I don't know what the general audience thinks of it, but personally for me, Saints Row 3, I feel like was decent. It was passable. It had comedy and a little bit of seriousness sometimes. Saints Row 3 for me is considered passable. Saints Row 4 is when everything just goes out the window and it's literally just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. Like, I enjoyed Saints Row 4 as well, but if you're looking for like serious storytelling, yeah, that shit left a long time ago. That ship set sail long ago. I never played Agents of Mayhem, and I didn't even play the fucking reboot. I have no idea what that's about. But yeah, when you think of the Saints Row Legacy, you think of Saints Row 2, and it's kind of... Some people would say it's kind of a shame how Saints Row ended up from what it used to be, and I would have to kind of agree. I'm not a hardcore Saints Row fan. I enjoyed it, but yeah, seeing where it started and where it is now, I personally would have to agree that, yeah, Saints Row really, really suffered. Grand Theft Auto. Another one where if you ask about Grand Theft Auto, people will point you to San Andreas being the best GTA game. Now, I understand that, and I like San Andreas. I've seen the clips and stuff on YouTube. I personally never played San Andreas, but I've seen clips and gameplay of it on YouTube, so I know the gist, I know the story of San Andreas. You know, 2 number 9s, all that. I get it. But to me personally, I find GTA 4 the best in the series. That's just my personal take on it. I started out with Liberty City Stories on the PSP, then Vice City Stories on the PSP, and then GTA 4 being my first console Grand Theft Auto game, because I had handhelds up until when I first got my PS3 in 2008. I really enjoy GTA 4. You know, it's New York sandbox at its finest, so that was another plus for me. But the story is overall good. Like, I really enjoyed Nico Bellic as a protagonist. I enjoyed the characters, his cousin Roman, you know, the allies you meet in the way, little Jacob. Well, except Brucey. Fuck Brucey. That guy's so fucking annoying. You know, and all the other cast members, I enjoyed them. Like, the missions made sense. I greatly enjoyed the story. I enjoyed Nico's back story as a character, Roman, the bonding time, you know, time you get to spend with them outside of the missions. You want to go Galazan, you want to go bowling, you want to go drinking, you know, play darts, etc., etc. It was fun. It was fun. I really never got bored of GTA 4, and then when they did the expansion from episodes of Liberty City with the Battle of Gay Tony and Lost and Damned, I also enjoyed that. Well, specifically Battle of Gay Tony. I don't really care for Lost and Damned. I played it. I did beat Lost and Damned. I just didn't care for it. The biker shit really didn't attract me. But main GTA 4 and Ballad of Gay Tony, cinema. Absolute cinema. I enjoyed both of those greatly. But yeah, I know San Andreas is the beloved and the most considered to be the greatest GTA in the series. But to me personally, I would put that on GTA 4. I really like GTA 4 better. Now, one with a very funny legacy would be Half-Life. Specifically Half-Life 2. Now, if you grew up playing Valve games, or if you recently became a Valve fan and played their games, you would know, spoilers, you would know that Half-Life 2 doesn't have an end. It ends on a cliffhanger. And will we ever see a conclusion? We don't know. If you grew up playing Half-Life 2 back in ye old day, and you were around when the memes of Gaben came around, like he doesn't know how to count to 3, and you skip over 3, all that jazz, like it's still going strong 20 something years later. We still got the memes going, Valve doesn't know how to count to, Gabe doesn't know how to count to 3, etc., etc. But yes, this one is another one which with a very famous legacy. I would be inclined to believe, because Half-Life was definitely revolutionary for its time. Like, it was built upon the Quake engine, if I'm thinking correctly. It was built upon the Quake engine, and at the time when the first game came out in 1998, like it changed. It was revolutionary. So I've heard. So I've read. It was revolutionary. Again, obviously, I wasn't there day one because I was only 1 year old when Half-Life 1 came out. I played it later when I got into Steam in the mid-2010s, early 2010s, so my bad. But yeah, no, I get it. Like, Half-Life is good. Like, I love the Source engine. I love the Golden Source engine. There's something unique about it. So much so that Gary's mod, which is like uses the Source engine and it's a do whatever the hell you want thing, I'm very fascinated by it. I like to do little shit posts and creations on it because, I don't know, I like the Source engine. I'm very fascinated by it. But yeah, Half-Life overall has a very good story. Like, it was memed upon, and, like, it was incorporated into, like, Flash games or, whatever relevant media at the time when Half-Life was there. Like, you would see nods to it, etc., etc. And, it was, Valve likes to reference their games in other media, so you even had little Half-Life things in TF2 or Left 4 Dead, like Lewis, like, if he grabs a car where he says, man, I feel like I'm Gordon Freeman, it's nice. But it does end on a cliffhanger, unfortunately, and we don't know what the conclusion of the Half-Life story would be. We don't know where it's going from here, which is a shame because I really did enjoy Half-Life's story. Like, Half-Life 1 story, like, really brought me in, and then 2 expanded upon it, and I really enjoyed 2. I even enjoyed the expansions, I was all about Half-Life. I literally played Half-Life 1, then I played it again when it was remade as Half-Life Source. I played Boost Shift, Opposing Force, Half-Life 2, Episode 1, Episode 2, and even Lost Coast, which is like a short-ass demo that they made into a separate game, and I enjoyed it. But yeah, overall, Half-Life is good, and the Source engine really was revolutionary for its time, I believe. But unfortunately, it ends in a cliffhanger. Will we ever see a conclusion to it? I have no idea. I would hope so. Resident Evil. Now, when you think of this, people will most likely point you to Resident Evil 5 being the greatest RE game. I understand that. To each his own. Again, to me personally, I don't consider RE5 the greatest RE game. And this is because I have a very strong, blatant bias and favoritism towards RE1. I consider all RE1s, that's right, all RE1s to be the best in the series. I enjoyed original 1996 PS1 RE1, I enjoyed Resident Evil Deadly Silence 1 on the DS, and I enjoyed RE1 Remake. Now, I understand 5 being the fan favorite, like the whole, sorry. Let me backtrack. 4 might be the fan favorite. I don't know, it's between 4 or 5. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's like split between 4 and 5. I know people like praise 4, but then I also heard 5 is like the best. So I don't know, it's between 4 or 5. I think 4 might be the beloved one. I could be incorrect. I know it's one of those two. I'm just gonna say 4/5 is the fan favorite in the RE series. But going back again, not changing my point of view, I do greatly enjoy RE1. I personally feel like that's the greatest in the series. I enjoy all of it. Like, I don't care about the bad voice acting. I don't care about the 90s, like, it got the 90s charm to it, or it's outdated or whatever. If you play the OGs or the remaster, whatever, I don't care. I love all RE1s. It's the start to the series. Like, again, to each his own. This is a very subjective topic. I'm aware of that. And like I said, my blatant favoritism and bias goes to RE1. I understand why 4 and 5 are the beloved ones. I understand that. I have played 4. I have not played OG 4. I watched a friend play OG 4. I did play Remake 4. And I did co-op 5 with a friend. I understand why 4 and 5 are the beloved ones. I get it. They were fun. I'm not gonna knock on them. I'm not shitting on them. I'm not saying they're bad. I enjoyed 4 and 5 as well. But again, me personally, I find 1 to be the superior. I find all the ones to be the superior. That's just me. Because I get it was revolutionary for its time, because before RE4, Resident Evil was a fixed camera angle tank controls type of game, and then RE4 came along and it changed to third-person shoulder camera, and then 5, expanded upon 4's engine and all that. So I get it, it was like revolutionary because the gameplay style changed and all that jazz. I get it. I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. I understand why 4 and 5 are the beloved ones, but I love 1 better.